Hi, this is Douglas Eisenstark. I made this video for consumers to better understand the AmericanDragon.com website. So I want to make it clear that this video is being made for those who are interested in Chinese herbs and haven't been to Chinese medicine school, but have run across American Dragon and are wondering what's going on. What are all these different things, all these complicated tables, and what does it all mean? If you've been through school, then hopefully these things won't be new to you. You'll know exactly what's going on. And again, if you are a professional, as I tell my students, if you want to write a formula, the best thing is to go to the books. Look at Binsky books, and at the Chin and Chin books, and all the great other books that are out there to help you write your formulas. I do use American Dragon a lot as a reference. American Dragon was created by my friend and colleague, Joel Pinner, an acupuncturist, educator, herbalist, and musician in Los Angeles. I urge anyone watching this video and anyone who uses the American Dragon website to contribute to its upkeep. Donating to the website is the best way for his daughter to keep the website going. I also want to point out that all the images and information in this video is copyrighted by American Dragon. So in this video, I'm going to go over the basic parts of the website and focus on the treatment protocol section. As you can see, the American Dragon website has a number of areas. Some things about Joel, about his practice. He has a number of videos, many of which he did with his friend and colleague Doug Kine. Joel put out a newsletter, Treatment Protocols, and we're going to get a lot into that. His tutoring practice, his book Zong Fu Syndromes, which he did with John McDonald. And it's a compilation of a number of different resources about the paradigm of the Zong Fu method of treating. John and Joel worked very hard on this book, and in a sense we can say that American Dragon came out of this project. It's still available, and it's also available as a PDF. So here we have the contact information for Shoshana, Joel's daughter, but be aware that Shoshana is not an herbalist or a medical professional. So the main thing we're going to look at are the treatment protocols. And this is what people on the web, they're looking for information. They might come here, they might not be a professional, but they have an interest. On the website itself, it says that this data is for informational use only. It's not intended to replace or supersede the training of a licensed practitioner, and should definitely not be used by non-practitioners. And then Joel goes on to say that there's a lot of information that he hasn't used, but it's compiled from other sources. And given that I do know that people do go to this website and do look at different diseases and conditions, I'm doing this not so that you can diagnose yourself or treat yourself if you're a consumer, but if you want to get a better idea of what's on the site, and when you look at it, you have some idea of what's happening here. So what draws many people to the site itself are the treatment protocols. And we're going to call these the diseases. And in Chinese medicine, we have over 4,000 disease names. And of course, many of them we don't have in Western medicine. And then of course, many Western medical diseases don't exist in Chinese medicine, except in other forms, or maybe named in a different way. But diseases are an important part of Chinese medicine for sure, and that's the first thing we need to do when we make up a diagnosis, is to name the disease. In Chinese medicine, after we have the disease, we look at the signs and symptoms to come up with a pattern diagnosis, or a bianzhong. And this is really what distinguishes Chinese medicine from Western medicine. This pattern diagnosis, or pattern differentiation, is extremely important, and many people will argue, and myself as well, that if you try to do an herbal or acupuncture treatment without a pattern diagnosis, you're not really doing Chinese medicine. So here we have a disease of acid reflux, and we can see that we have many possibilities of a pattern diagnosis or a pattern differentiation. Learning these patterns take up the bulk of time when people study for Chinese medical school, and then it takes the rest of your life to refine it. So the pattern diagnosis is really where it's at. When people contact me and they say, oh, what do you have for acid reflux? Well, I do have some pretty good ideas of what to do, but there are a lot of possibilities. For the disease called acid reflux, we have a number of patterns that it could be. Many diseases have many different pattern diagnoses. Here we have mainly Zhong Fu in American Dragon. The Zhong Fu means the organs. So here is a liver pattern, which is not necessarily the organ itself, but it's the functioning of the organ within Chinese medicine. So one disease can have any number of pattern differentiations. Let's look at one of the formulas in the formula category on American Dragon. We'll look at Buzhong Yiqitong. It is used a lot. It's been around for about 800 years or so. And so we have the herbs that are in the formula, and then we have a description of what the herbs do, the actions. And generally these actions are in Chinese medical terms. Again, we have the syndromes, the manifestations, which will be the symptoms. So we've come around in a circle here. So if we have Buzhong Yiqitong and we say that it treats anemia, with the right conditions, yes, it will treat anemia. If you have a diagnosis, but pattern differentiation is central qi sinking, then Buzhong Yiqitong would be the correct formula if you have anemia. If you have anemia from spleen and kidney deficiency, then it wouldn't be the best formula. So only by finding the right pattern differentiation can we find the right formula. So we have a number of formulas here, and formulas are groups of herbs, generally 2 or more. Sometimes there's 1 herb in a formula, but that's rare. For the most part, the modern formula will start at around 6 herbs, more or less, but may have up to 20 herbs in a formula. Some people prefer to have a small number of herbs. It's a style that the herbalist practitioner might have. Other people might have very big formulas as a style. Sometimes the condition, you just need a few herbs. You don't need a whole long huge formula. So you see at the end of a number of formulas here, it might say Lian Chao Baidu San, or Lian Chao Baidu Pian, or Lian Mei An Wei Tong. So these endings denote what originally how they were to be taken. A san might be a powder, might be taken through the nose. A pian might be a powdered herbs that are put into a tablet. A tong is a soup, sort of the old style. We still do it. We still cook up herbs in a soup and drink it. And then a gao would be a cream. These days, the names sort of stuck, maybe especially in English-speaking countries where we don't know what they mean. So you can have a pill which is, we call it a tong, even though technically it's not a soup, but it's a capsule. And also these days we put a lot of these herbs formulas into granule form, extract the good stuff from it and put it into a granule, and that might go into a capsule as well. So about 1,000 years ago, there were a number of formulas out there, and the Chinese government needed to regulate them, sort of like an FDA. And they started writing books which had guidelines for what was going to be in the formulas. So the one pharmacy wasn't selling one set of herbs with one name, and another pharmacy was selling the same name but had different herbs in it. So it meant there was some kind of standardization. Let's look at the herbs themselves. There are a number of them, and probably we use about half of these in our standard practice. But if you study Chinese medicine, most of these will be familiar to you. Let's look at a very common herb here, Wang Qi, astragalus. And I want to point out the names here. Here we have Wang Qi, and this is called the Chinese pinyin. And these are the characters in Chinese. This is the definitive name of it. We have Latin here, and then sort of an English type Latin. And then we have I guess you would call it a common English name, and it can be very confusing to use the English names. So each of the herbs has a category, and for Wang Qi it's tonified qi. It has its properties, its actions, and indications. The indications are what it does: tonify qi, strengthen the spleen, promote urination, reduce edema. The herbs are generally listed in the order in which they are usually used. We don't use it that much for promoting urination and edema, but we do use it for tonifying qi and blood all the time. There's contraindications. This is basically if you use the formula in a way it's not supposed to be used. If you have yin deficiency, if you have a lot of heat, then Wang Qi is not the herb to use in this case. The herb-drug interactions, that's rather complicated and controversial. There are not many of them, but as a practitioner, of course, you want to be aware of the drugs that your patient is taking. Here we have the combination of how the herbs are used. So often I'll have a patient and I'll realize that Wang Qi is going to be an important part of that formula that I'm writing for them. And so then I look here and I see what it is it's combined with often. And this gives me some ideas, sparks my imagination about the type of formula and what other herbs I can use in the formula. Here we have the properties, and these are important. The entering meridians, which is a bit of a controversial subject. It's not really the meridians as much as the organs, which is kind of a technical distinction. But we do have taste and the temperature. And again, this can get very complicated. In school, we are tested on this. So for example, if we're studying Wang Qi, on the test it will be, what is the taste of Wang Qi? And you had to write down sweet. And then put down the meridians. And then put down if it was warm or hot or cold. I hated this part. It was total memorization, and it was really difficult for me. Once I got out and I started practicing, then this became really important and very interesting. The taste or flavors have different properties to them. The sweet is said to tonify and build, and the bitter is going to drain. Pungent disperses, often towards the exterior on the skin, and might be used for colds or dermatology. Sour absorbs and pulls in. Salty softens hardness. Many times the formulas will have different aspects of sweet and sour together, and heat and cold, and they will work together within the formula. In this way you can get very deep into this when you're writing your formula. A lot has been written about the temperatures and flavors over the thousands of years. Let's look at Wang Lian, Coptis. It's in the clear heat and purge fire. The properties of this are very bitter and is said to be one of the most bitter herbs. The temperature is very cold, so you might go into a formula for treating a fever. It clears heat, the actions drain dampness, resolve fire toxicity. If you have a yin deficiency, it's going to drain too much, so this would be a contraindication. If you have cold already, then it's not going to be appropriate. It does have some incompatibilities, for example, do not take with pork. But often it's just that it counteracts the actions of other herbs and may move against them. It's not poisonous, but it's just not a great idea. So I'm going to finish with a few words here and just say that for thousands of years, Chinese medicine and East Asian medicine was the only medicine throughout that part of the world. So if someone got sick, the doctors would treat, and they would treat using Chinese medicine. In that sense, Chinese medicine treated everything. If there was a disease, then they would use Chinese medicine for it. But it doesn't mean that nowadays Chinese medicine has the best cures for every disease. The medicine has long recognized everything from anemia, lupus, MS, diabetes, skin diseases, ulcers, common colds to the effects of aging. We may put them in a different paradigm, we may give them different names, but Chinese medicine is there. And I think in many cases it treats these conditions brilliantly, and in many cases better than Western medicine. However, there are times when Western medicine has created treatments that are extremely effective, but often they have side effects. Even when using Western treatments, Chinese medicine can help with these side effects. As an example, the big disease we face these days is cancer. Western medicine is getting better and better at treatments, and Chinese medicine can provide a very effective supportive role. But Chinese medicine should not be solely relied upon for treatment. I've seen too many patients and even colleagues who used Chinese medicine but waited too long for using Western medicine. On the American Dragon website, there are a number of formulas for treatment of cancer and other serious diseases. These are used in China, but in China these formulas are always used in hospitals in conjunction with Western medicine, and rarely used on their own. This goes for a number of serious diseases. The herbs are often effectively used as helpers or to mitigate side effects, but know that Western medicine does have its place. I know that when people write to me about problems and they have cancer, then I'm very wary to prescribe Chinese herbs if they're not going to do Western medicine as well. If you have a serious disease, go see a Western doctor and also a licensed herbalist practitioner who will give you an honest assessment and treatments. A knowledgeable herbalist should be able to guide you on making the right choices. So I hope that is clear. So this has been my quick overview of American Dragon. I hope it gives you some idea of the richness of Chinese medicine. I thought this would be a quick and short video, but in the spirit of Joel, it's taking longer than I expected. In doing this, I find that I miss Joel a lot. He never formally was my teacher, but he started practicing many years before me, and I learned a lot from him, from his experience. We had been friends for many years. We played in a band together. He was a nice guy and very funny. I know that he is missed by the community of acupuncturists and musicians in Los Angeles. I'm happy to see he has left a legacy not only with his books and music, but also with American Dragon. I think its success surprised even him. Thank you for your time, and once again, contribute to the site, and let's keep it going. My name is Douglas Eisenstark.